to another installment in Frank's live Facebook chats. For those of you who don't know, Neel is a percussionist. He's a keyboardist, producer, and songwriter. He co-hosts the weekly radio show and podcast Song Talk Radio on CJRU 1280 AM in Toronto. Neel currently co-writes and drums in the indie rock band Beige Shelter, and he writes and records his own songs as well. Neel is super awesome, a well-rounded person, a person who I've gotten to know over the years because of being a guest at on the Song Talk Radio show. If you're a singer-songwriter, you have to be listening to his radio show with Bruce and Phil.
Yes.
Song Talk Radio, just Google it, it'll definitely come up. And it is a fabulous show because it gets into the essence of what it's like to write songs and hearing from the perspectives of so many different songwriters from different backgrounds.
The way we like to put it is like a gardening show for songwriters.
Absolutely,
Right?
that's a great...
We're getting into the chords, we're getting into the lyrics, we're getting into the melodies, all the nitty gritty. Like even listening to your stuff this week is kind of got my brain back into, hey, maybe I should revisit instrumental stuff that I haven't done in a long time. You're always kind of stretching my boundary a little bit.
You said earlier you had a chance to listen to all the 4 albums this week. That's awesome. What resonates with you the most in listening and why?
Actually, the instrumental piano one, what's that one called?
You Haven't Been.
You Haven't Been.
Yeah. That
one, I think, I'm not really sure why it's resonated with me the most, but I think that one, of the 4, it's the most emotional. For sure, it's certainly where there's an element of passion in that music that is not to say it doesn't exist in the other 3, but it exists to a larger extent, I think, in that one.
is all about, all the piano pieces on that album are all inspired by my battle with depression and anxiety, and I just try to figure out a way to translate what it feels like to go through those things into solo piano pieces. You know, it's sort of an abstract concept, right? How do you do that?
Because how do you do that with a lyric, especially? I mean, certainly there's a lot of emotional range on that album as well, because there are brighter moments, there are darker moments, there are minimalist moments, there are... I think what the things that pop out of that album are like there are these moments of kind of really cool melodic interest that pop out of the minimalism, and those are the things that I kind of gravitated towards.
It's the most personal of the 4. You know? Yeah. So maybe the fact that I really shared something really inside me, maybe that's
it. Because the other one, that Current Agenda, with all the electronics and stuff, I found that one, if anything, to be the complete opposite. Like I couldn't connect with that hardly at all.
Right. Yeah. No, that's not music for enjoyment.
No, and I don't think it was designed that way. No. But frankly, that's the stuff. That's the case with anything of yours that I've listened to. It's you need a second, third, fourth, fifth pass before you really kind of get into it and like, okay, I get what you're doing now.
Yeah,
it's kind of cool.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's like the first time I ever listened to Jimi Hendrix. I remember that when I was 16.
Oh.
I remember listening to Jimi Hendrix for the first time. Somebody gave me a cassette tape.
Yes.
I don't even know who Jimi Hendrix was.
Right.
And I listened, and it was on my Walkman, and we were on a bus going from Ottawa, where I grew up, coming here to Toronto to see Phantom of the Opera. My friend lent me the tape, and in the moving bus, listening to Jimi Hendrix on a Walkman for the first time, I almost puked on the bus.
Oh.
Because I've never heard anything like that before in my life. It was just like, where did this come from? It's like, it was just so much of a shock to my system. But then I kept listening, and now Jimi Hendrix for me is a musical genius.
Yes.
You know, and a god, you know, but it took me some time. So, if you don't mind, let's briefly talk about Love in Six Stages.
Yeah.
Because Love in Six Stages is really, I've always thought of the 4 albums that came out this week, it's really only the closest thing to a pop album.
Yeah, I mean, they're songs in the way that the other ones aren't songs.
They're songs. That's the only one of the 4 that actually has a singing voice on it.
Yeah, true that.
But yeah, so I consider it my pop album, but I keep putting like a lot of quotes in pop here. Why do I do that? Well, the simple reason is the first thing that grabs you with that album is that every song is 10 minutes long.
Mm-hmm.
And it has sort of simple instrumentation. It's only piano accompaniment, digital effects on both. But it's the whole 10-minute thing.
It's a concept album.
Right.
Right? And I mean, granted, I'm the sort of guy that does listen to albums from beginning to end, whether they're concepts or not. So
right.
I'm like the whole world of pop singles that's pervasive in the last long while.
Absolutely.
It doesn't really, the project I'm working on, I'm actually conceiving it as an album as well.
Right.
Who knows if anyone will listen to it? Same, we have sort of a same
story of our lives.
Exactly, right?
Yeah,
similar dilemma, right? So again, that being said, for one thing, the singer you had on that has got a gorgeous voice.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Laura
Swanky, just absolutely beautiful, and she's captured all the ups and downs and the quiet moments and the more powerful emotional moments, and she's got that entire range. Along with your piano
but us still relentless with intensity, city, 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 city. The edges make our world boundless. Will this become a propensity?
The other thing we actually thought about doing is we thought about making 2 versions of that album.
Oh.
We thought of doing this, and then we also thought about, then we're going to do abridged versions. We thought we were going to call them radio friendly.
Yeah.
These are the original,
Yeah,
and then this is the radio version, because
Yeah.
I know there has been some radio shows that have been playing it, but those are really, they're not pop radio shows. It's like new music shows, that cross the strata between pop and classical. And I think that's, in the end, that's what I realized in the end, just to keep it the way it was, because I was so intrigued by the concept. And because it's a concept element and all the pieces connect, it's almost like, and there's so many different sections within each piece. So a lot of the pieces, like, it's a completely brand new piece. B section, radically different than A sections. I think that's why I kept it.
The other thing we talk about on the radio show especially is understanding where the artist had come from, and did they line up their result with their intention.
Absolutely.
And that much of it is perfectly clear, even just by listening to it, without even hearing what you intended. It's constructed in such a way and conceived in such a way that you're absolutely confident this is exactly how you wanted it.
Right.
Like there's nothing in there that's an accident.
Right.
You know what I mean?
No, that makes perfect sense, because that's how I do compose. I'm very A type, everything perfectly mapped out and stuff.
Yeah.
Now I wanted it to the songs to develop like quasi longer classical pieces would, where you go into a certain mindset in a certain zone and just let that happen. And whether I'm successful or not, time will tell and people will tell that. But that's just sort of what I was after.
To me, that's when the interesting moments in music history happen, is when genres start getting bent and start overlapping and start fusing together.
There's been so many spin-offs that it doesn't make any sense now. You know what I mean? Like people, what I'm trying to say is, let's just listen to the music. Now, you mentioned Spotify. I've been reading a lot lately about how the big thing for the music consumer out there right now isn't genre. So in other words, these terms that the music business and the media are trying to shove and labeling things and metadata for iTunes and stuff, they're not into that. Because of the growth of Spotify, what's becoming more important now is mood. Which is, I think this is awesome, especially for someone like who I compose. Like a lot of my compositions, many of them are based on a set emotion, when that's the underlying emotion that I start writing with.
Right.
And I love that. So people are compiling playlists
It's
that
like
have
the relax mix or the
workout mix,
mix,
the enlightenment or the studying or the sad or happy.
Right,
you know what I mean? So you have like playlists that are really being followed that are having music. Like one playlist could have Bruce Springsteen unplugged with Debussy, Claire de Lune.
Yeah.
Why? Because they're both really super sort of sad or heartfelt, poignant things.
Right.
Isn't that amazing? We live in a time
That's
like
actually
that.
pretty cool. Yeah.
That's what makes me optimistic about the world we're living in right now musically, is that this is happening.
That's incredible.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
And
That's
I
a
think,
good point, actually.
and I think that in my world of classical music, this is really helpful. In other words, a lot of people who would normally not listen to classical music are listening to classical music. Some of the biggest stars right now in classical music are people like Max Richter. I don't know if that name means anything to you. Or Iannotti, or Philip Glass, or these guys are getting a huge amount of play on Spotify playlists. Not because of the fact that people are interested in classical music, but because their music resonates with something with them that associates them with a certain activity that they might be doing at any given point of their day. Well, listen, I can't thank you enough for participating in this crazy chat. I want to thank you all very much for watching.